The City of Roanoke Emergency Ordinance adopted by the Roanoke Valley Allegheny Regional Commission on April 23rd of 2020 and the 2020 Virginia General Assembly legislation H-29 enacted on April 24th, 2020. The January meeting of the Roanoke Valley Allegheny Regional Commission is being held virtually on Thursday, January 28th, 2021 at 3 o'clock via Zoom. Under the current state of emergency and until further notice, it has been deemed unsafe to assemble a quorum of a public body in one place. Any members of the public may view and participate in the meeting through electronic means. Meeting details are listed on the second page of the agenda. All materials made available to the members will be made available to the public at the same time by posting on the Roanoke Valley Allegheny Regional Commission website. This meeting is being recorded as always. Due to the virtual nature, video and audio will be recorded and provided on the website in place of written minutes. When the state of emergency ends, draft minutes from all of the meetings held during the time will be ratified at the next in-person meeting. As a way of ensuring that our meeting goes smoothly, Brian Hill, RVARC Regional Planner, will serve as the host for this meeting. All participants are asked to mute themselves to improve audio quality. If any voting commission member wishes to make a motion, second it, or comment on a motion, please unmute yourself and ask to be recognized by the chair. At this time, I'll ask our secretary to call the roll.
Mr. Chair, if I might, I wanted to get a clarification on a few folks that have joined us. If someone could tell me who they are that dialed in with last four digits 2504.
Chuck Unroe, Town of Clifton Forge.
All right, thank you. And the other one, they've got a screen name of SNDRV.
I don't know if that might be me or not. This is the first time I've done this on this iPad. It's Mark Newbill from Rocky Mount.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And if somebody can tell me how to mute on an iPad. If not, I'll just be real quiet.
There's a microphone icon on the top right, and if you touch it, a line appears through it. And that's mute, and if you touch it again, the line goes away.
All right. Any more questions, Brian?
No, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, if there's no other business, we'll ask the secretary to call the roll.
Ms. Cox? Shannon Cox, okay. Mr. Lanford? Ms. Vanersdal?
I'm here.
Mr. Clinton?
Here.
Ms. Henderson? Mr. LaRue? Mr. Billy Martin? Mr. Collins? Mr. Spence? Mr. Mitchell? Mr. Carter? Mr. Whitlow?
Here.
Mr. Inslow? Ms. Smith? Ms. Smith, I think she's here. Lori Smith. Okay.
I'm sorry, I was muted. I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Here.
Mr. Hutchins? Mr. Dean Martin?
Here.
Mr. Radford?
Here.
Mr. North?
Here.
Mr. Osborne? Mr. Osborne?
Here.
All right. Miss Onitis? Mr. Tucker?
Here.
Mr. Bestpitch?
Here.
Miss Moon Reynolds?
Here.
Dr. Downey,
Here.
Mr. Jeffrey,
Here.
Mr. Gusner,
Here.
Mr. Volleson,
Here.
Mr. Wallace. Mr. Wallace, I think, is here.
Present.
Mr. Saunders, Ms. King,
Here.
Ms. Marshall,
Here.
Mayor Marshall, now,
I'm here.
Mr. Irvin,
Here.
Mr. Newbill,
Here.
Mr. Peters. We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Wayne. And Happy New Year to everyone. We'll move on our agenda item to number 2, approval of consent agenda items, approval of the agenda, approval of the December 10th minutes, and the financial reports ending December 31st. All these items which are on pages 3 through 45 and 46 through 49. Do I have a motion that we approve these consent agenda items?
So moved.
Second.
Righty, that's Mr. Bestfitch made the motion and Mr. Martin seconded. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I was late getting on the meeting here. I apologize for that, but I'm here.
Don't let it happen again, Billy.
Okay, if you say so, I sure won't.
Gentleman from Roanoke has made his presence known, and Mr. Martin so noted. All right, let's go ahead then.
Mr. Chairman, we'll have to take a roll.
I think a
take a
roll
vote.
call on that, yes.
Okay. Mr. Lanford,
Yes.
Ms. Vandersdal,
Yes.
Mr. Clinton,
Here.
Mr. Martin, Billy Martin,
Here, sir.
Mr. Whitlow,
Here.
Ms. Smith,
Here.
Mr. O'Donnell, Mr. O'Donnell,
I muted myself. Sorry.
okay. Mr. Dean Martin,
Here.
Mr. Radford,
Yes.
Mr. North,
Yes,
Mr. Osborne,
Yes.
Mr. Tucker,
Yes.
Mr. Bestfitch,
Yes.
Ms. Moon Reynolds,
Yes.
Dr. Downey,
Yes.
Mr. Jeffrey,
Yes.
Mr. Gusler,
Yes.
Mr. Volleson,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Aye.
Ms. King,
Yes.
Mayor Marshall,
Yes.
Mr. Irvin,
Aye.
Mr. Newbill.
Aye.
We have the motion is approved, Mr. Chairman.
thank you very much, Wayne. Moving on to agenda item 3, remarks by the chair. I've got 3 items today. First of all, on behalf of the Regional Commission, it's my pleasure to welcome 2 new members to the commission representing the city of Roanoke. Council members Stephanie Moon Reynolds and Robert Jeffrey Jr. are our newest members. And we welcome you to the commission and look forward to working with you. Ms. Moon Reynolds and Mr. Jeffrey replaced council members Joe Cobb and former council member DeJuna Osborne. Item 2, the 2022 Work Program Committee will have its first meeting today following the conclusion of the Regional Commission meeting. During this short meeting, committee members will be introduced to the process of developing the work program. I want to take the opportunity to thank the following commissioners who will be serving on the Work Program Committee this year. Joan Vandersall of Allegheny County, Billy Martin Sr., Botetourt County Chair of the Work Program Committee, Dan Collins from Craig County, Christopher Whitlow from Franklin County, Alan Tucker from the City of Covington, Bill Bestfitch from the City of Roanoke, James Wallace from the City of Salem, Mayor Pam Marshall from the Town of Clifton Forge, James Irvin from the Town of Rocky Mount, and Richard Pete Peters from the Town of Benton. along with myself, Phil North, and Roanoke County. The next item, each year, the staff of the commission creates a website that tracks legislation of interest to our member local governments. Brian Hill on staff handles the development of the website. If you have any specific pieces of legislation you wish to follow, the link is located at rvarc.org/community/legislative-bills /. Additionally, if you have specific items that are not covered in our tracking system, please let Brian or someone on the staff know. With that said, we'll move on to item 4, the Executive Committee's report. At this time, there are revisions to the Executive Committee report on the proposed fiscal year 2021 budget. The Commission's Executive Committee met on December 10th, 2020, and reviewed the proposed budget revisions for the fiscal year 2021 budget. The revised budget is only 1% less than the original budget for 2021. Overall, the revenues and expenses have remained stable during the COVID-19 pandemic. The details of the budget revision are provided in the agenda packet for today's meeting. The Executive Committee is recommending that the Commission approve the budget revision. Wayne, at this time, I guess we entertain any questions that anyone might have about the budget revision. There being no questions, Wayne, do we need to make a motion for adoption of this budget revision?
Yes, sir. We have to adopt him.
Madam Chair, Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we accept it.
I don't know who you're looking at on the screen.
I was looking at Bill Bestich. I'm sorry.
I'll second.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Wayne, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Lanford,
Yes.
Ms. Vanisdahl,
Yes.
Mr. Clinton,
Yes.
Mr. Billy Martin,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Whitlow,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mr. Dean Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Radford,
Yes.
Mr. North,
Yes.
Mr. Osborne,
Yes.
Mr. Tucker,
Yes.
Mr. Bestpitch,
Yes.
Ms. Moon Reynolds,
Yes.
Dr. Downey,
Yes.
Mr. Jeffrey,
Yes.
Mr. Gusler,
Yes.
Mr. Volleson,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Aye.
Ms. King,
Yes.
Mayor Marshall,
Yes.
Mr. Irvin,
Aye.
Mr. Newbill.
Aye.
The motion is approved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Wayne. Moving on to agenda item number 5, the Executive Director's Report. We will now recognize Wayne Strickland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a couple of things. One, the first announcement I'm pleased to announce is our new Associate Executive Director. And I don't know, many of you know Jeremy Holmes. Jeremy's been with us about 15 years, and he's been the Director of Ride Solutions, and he's been involved with lots and lots of local organizations, and you'll see that a little in the newsletter that will come out tomorrow. But very pleased to have Jeremy join us in that position. Now, he will also continue to be the Director of Ride Solutions, so he'll spend 30% or so of his time as an Associate Director. His main role in the organization will be special projects, such as he's going to handle the work program. He has worked, of course, on the an item we're going to talk about later, which is the looking at the board structure. But he's also going to be working with the finance director and assessing programs and ensuring that our work program stays on track. So if you get a chance to greet and welcome our new associate director, please do that. The other item is that, as the chairman said, we are beginning the process of developing the FY 2022 work program, which will begin on July 1st of this year. We have sent information out to, I think, everyone, but the pivotal point in all this are the county administrators and the city town managers. They're kind of the gatekeepers that are going to send projects forward. We do that just to make sure that we don't get a lot of duplicate things or things that the managers and administrators aren't aware of, and they're kind of looking at the priorities, because we asked the managers and administrators to prioritize their projects. So you have a priority 1, priority 2, and we try to, of course, address as many of those projects as we can. Those project requests are due in Friday, February the 5th, and they'll be discussed with the work program committee after the February meeting, and we'll be assessing how much time and resource it will take to address or to accommodate the proposed projects. We will have, as the chairman said, a meeting this afternoon just to go through the process, so everyone on the work program committee understands what we're doing and what's going to happen next. So the administrators, I'm sure, are moving forward. We've already gotten requests from Mr. Lanford in Allegheny County and from the town of Vinton. So we expect to get other jurisdictions submitting their request in the next week or by Friday, next Friday. Any questions about that? I wanted to comment on the legislative website that we have. There are lots of bills that are interesting. Mr. North mentioned in the TPO meeting about House Bill 1910 that would allow the creation of regional transportation authorities. It authorizes 2 or more adjacent counties or cities to form a regional transportation authority to engage in regional transportation projects. As you know, Northern Virginia, Hampton Roads, Richmond, they already have transportation authorities. There are some others around Virginia as well, but a lot of those are devoted to mainly supporting public transit. But the transportation authority that's being proposed here would support highways. It would support also public transit, and I guess theoretically, I guess it could support aviation. For whatever purposes. So anyway, when you get on, then there's some other pieces of legislation I know that you've been following. The VACO VML VAPDC conference today covered a lot of interesting pieces of legislation that are going through the General Assembly. But if you have any questions, please look at the website or give one of the staff members a call. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Wayne. Just to comment on the add some fodder to the work program update. I just want to encourage everyone to submit projects. I know the first year we submitted several studies, an I-81 study on rail diversion from truck to measure that impact. We also did the regional housing study, and we also did the regional career and technical education center study. So these are some good projects, and many times they are accomplished through grants after the project has been offered and approved. So a very good program, and I urge everyone to support that to the extent you've got some ideas or studies you'd like to have looked into. Moving on to item 6, restructuring committee's report. That's on page 53 through 57 of your meeting package. Chair recognizes Lee Osborne. Lee?
Thank you, Chairman North. There is a detailed draft, or it says draft, it's actually the report, of the restructuring committee that is contained beginning on page 53 of the materials. I don't intend to read that report to you, but I do want to highlight some of the process and the background of what we're talking about. The idea for restructuring the regional commission came up I guess, is a serious topic as far almost 2 years ago in April of 2019. And it's, it was not a feeling that, the commission itself necessarily is too large, but in looking at the number of people that are required to be on the commission from each of our localities, and particularly with looking at the possibility that the city of Roanoke, specifically under our current membership provisions in our charter, might reach a point where a majority of council, if they got above 100,000, would be required to be members of the commission. There was some concern that maybe we should review our membership provisions in anticipation of that possibility. You may recall that there was a survey submitted that sort of provided a couple of options for how to do that, and there was some feedback on that. And then, of course, COVID-19 happened, and this was tabled for a considerable period of time. Last October, our chair asked us to revisit this and appointed a committee consisting of myself as chair, with Phil North, Bill Bestich, and Billy Martin as the members of the committee. We were supported in this effort very helpfully and ably by Jeremy and Wayne, and appreciate all the work that they did on this, both up front and also in response to questions and changes that the committee asked them during the course of the process of our review. Initially, Jeremy, I believe, had done a study of statewide of the planning district commissions in terms of size, number of jurisdictions that were members, and representation, and looked at where we fell in that group. And we were pretty much in the top element of that group in terms of our number of representatives. And also created some scenarios of possible changes in how we might define our membership structure among our different members, our localities, to give us some things to think about. I initially sat down with that language, also identified what would actually need to be changed, and primarily that is a revision to our charter. And what was made very clear in looking at that is a revision to our charter requires unanimous approval of all of the member localities. And so this is not something that could be forced upon any member of the commission, and therefore it is something that should take into account and consider the concerns and interests of all members. Wayne and I sat down and reviewed that information, and from that came out with stuff that was sent out to the committee to look at. In our initial review, I believe there were 5 options for changes to membership that had various features to them, but with a goal of giving some different options for how we might reduce the size of the commission and what the impact of that would be. As we talked about the different options and looked at them, it became evident that there were some principles or guiding concepts that we thought we should try to maintain or look at through this process. And those principles are kind of on the bottom of the first page on 53, but there was a goal of not changing too dramatically the relative representation of the member governments in our current structure. When we actually look at those percentage numbers, which are detailed, well, let's see if they're detailed in this report. They're not detailed in this report, I don't think. But when we look at those percentage numbers, well, actually they are. Yes, if you look on page 2, there's a chart there that shows our current representation based on, and also our current population. And it shows what our population is as a percentage of the total population of the planning district region, and what the number of members representing that each locality on the commission is as a percentage of the total membership. And so you can see in looking at that chart that even though we have 5 jurisdictions that have a higher percentage of membership on the commission, as a general rule, those percentages do not correspond directly to their percentage membership as a matter of population. And so our goal, the principle that we wanted to try to maintain was to not too dramatically change the percentage of representation on the commission, not as focused as much on the representation or the percentage of the population as a whole. The second thing that came out of our review, and this was, a second part of our process, was after our first meeting, we sort of narrowed it down to 2 of the options. We asked Wayne to poll the chief administrative officers of each locality and get their feedback as to how they felt about either of those 2 options and which they might prefer. And as you can imagine, they didn't all prefer the same option, but the major difference was that in order to consider reducing the numbers on the commission, one option simply had the smaller jurisdictions by population only having 1 representative, and the second retained the current level, which is a minimum of 2 representatives. Overall, there's a requirement that the total representation of the commission, the members have to be a majority elected officials from the local governing bodies. That is not a requirement at each jurisdiction level. It is a requirement at the commission level. And so having the smaller localities having 2 representatives, one of which is an elected official and one of which is not an elected official, is perfectly fine. We're just required overall that at least a majority of the total membership of the commission be elected officials. The feedback we got reinforced 2 of the other principles that we had talked about. And one was the question of whether or not there was a value in having a minimum of 2 representatives with the opportunity to have a non-elected official for each jurisdiction. And I'll provide a little historical perspective on this because I was chair of the commission from 1995 through 1999. And that seems like a long time ago. And in fact, it is a long time ago. But I know that at that time, one of our primary focuses, and I think this has continued to be a focus, was to make the work of the commission important enough that it would engage, engage and be important to our administrative officers. And if you look at the percentage of jurisdictions that do have their administrative officers as members of the commission now, you can see that that is something that I think over time we have been successful with and is perceived as a value. We felt like keeping the minimum membership at 2 was the only way that we could allow that to continue. It's not required, but it would give the jurisdictions the options to continue that. And I think the third principle basically was to make sure that we complied with the code requirements that require that a majority overall be on the commission. So after sending out 2 alternatives, I'm not going to go into the details of those 2 alternatives, and looking at the responses that we got back, there was an additional concept that came out of those responses, which was that, particularly as to elected officials, that it would be helpful to have an opportunity for there to be someone who could act as a substitute representative for an elected official if they were not able to attend or participate in the meeting on a given meeting date. And so what we have ultimately come down to and proposed, if you look at the bottom of page 50, 5. I'll go over this recommendation as it's presented. We recommend that the board amend the charter to implement the following changes to the membership requirements. That every member government appoints 2 members, at least one of whom is an elected official of the governing body. That localities with populations between 25,000 and 50,000 appoint 1 additional member who must be an elected official of the governing body for a total of 3. And localities with populations over 50,000 appoint 1 additional member who may but does not need to be a non-elected official. That would be a total of 4, which would be the maximum number of representatives for any jurisdiction. So we essentially, with this proposal, have a minimum number of 2 and a maximum number of 4 representatives on the commission. And with the overall requirement still that there be a majority of elected officials represented on these commissions. The chart below that shows what the changes would be for each locality, both in terms of the representation on the commission as well as the number of members on the commission. The changes, as we make changes to the charter, would also make it absolutely clear. We think it certainly has been understood that this is a requirement, but the language will be cleaned up to clarify that the appointed official representing the locality as an elected official must be a member of the governing body. It can't be a constitutional officer who is also elected. And of course, we're eliminating the provisions for additional members once you get above the $50,000 level. These changes would result in a total membership of 30, which is a net reduction from 38. So it's not a huge change. And all of those reductions are coming with the larger localities. We also, so there's draft charter language, which we are recommending to affect those changes. And we also have a proposed provision regarding alternate memberships, which would allow each locality at the time that they designate the elected official to also designate an alternate elected official. The reason that this can't just be an ad hoc thing where you fill in a proxy and send notice is that we need to be able to send appropriate notice to those elected officials who will be, or those members of the commission who will be at the meetings. And in order to make that manageable and in order to, we believe, comply with the language of the code, we feel like it's important to have a designated representative as opposed to someone that could be represented at any given time. So that's why it's written the way it is. The only thing that we also talked about that's not addressed in this proposal is the transition provisions for this, because in eliminating two positions for Roanoke City, Roanoke County, eliminating 1 position for Botetourt, City of Salem, Allegheny, and the town of Benton, which would be the result of these changes. That will happen given the current terms and representatives already appointed over time with attrition. And so those, as terms would end, that could be one way to accomplish these changes. The other, of course, would require immediate changes and elimination of certain representatives. The committee did not make a specific recommendation as to how to accomplish that. We did talk about the possibility of having a language to the effect that these changes would take effect, for example, July 1st, which is the beginning of the next fiscal year of 2021, but that they would not affect the term of any already appointed member, so that any member who is already on the commission, even though it may exceed the number, would continue to serve on the commission. The other alternative would, of course, be to make those adjustments so that each locality would have to, if necessary, reduce the size of their appointments on a stated date. And then the third alternative would be to make the effective date pretty far out, which would either be July 1 of 2022 or at the worst July 1 of 2023, because I don't think any of the terms extend beyond June 30th of 2023. But that is something that we discussed, but really probably wanted to get some analysis to see exactly how it would work out with individuals, and wanted to give some opportunity for discussion here. So, Mr. Chairman, that is my report.
Thank you, Lee. This time, regarding the proposal for restructuring, are there any questions for Lee and the commission?
Wayne, as you see the charter, are Rocky Mount and Franklin County voters on this, or we sit on the side while the state-determined members vote on it?
As far as I'm concerned, I don't know any reason why you wouldn't be.
This is option one, is that right?
It's in here is option A. So it is not, if you saw option one or option two before, Billy, which you did. Because you were
Okay,
on
yeah, I've got it.
this is neither option one nor option two. It is a compromise, if you will, between the two.
Yeah, okay, I've got that with me in front of me right now. I apologize for
That's
that.
page 54, yeah, of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I'd like to ask Mr. Irvin, what was the question again?
Mr. Irvin, repeat your question.
We had Franklin County and Rocky Mount are voluntary members. We're not members by statute or boundary of the planning district. So was your interpretation that we would vote on this charter change, or that we're simply, ultimately impacted by it?
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead. Okay. Well, when the county and the town petitioned to join the commission, the agreement was that they would be full voting members. And we have cleared that, of course, years ago, we cleared that with the Department of Housing and Community Development in Richmond, and they certainly understand that you are voting members of the commission.
Mr. Mike, in case anyone is a little bit confused by the chart, at the bottom of page 55, the qualities and the population figures are up one line where it should be. So the last line on the bottom of page 55 relates to Salem. And when you go to 56, the first locality should be Allegheny County. And then region totals come down to the bottom line of that chart.
Right.
If you understand what I'm saying, it's something just got a little bit off. I just want to make sure everybody is lining up their locality with the right figures, the correct figures.
Thank you, Mr. Bispich. That's right. That population, those line numbers and the names of the cities don't line up with the numbers.
Wayne, just
Yes, sir.
one question here. Looking over the proposal that's in the package, is this all being considered under one criteria, or do we have to vote on the separate parts?
No, sir. I would recommend, well, the recommendation of the restructuring committee is to approve that option A that you see there, as well as the language to change. Well, it changes the charter in both cases, the membership requirements, as well as to allow alternates in the, which is not in the charter now.
So today we're just considering supporting or voting on the recommended changes. So they still have to be submitted though to each locality. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. If the commission approves this, it will go out to all the local governments, and all local governments have to approve it.
has to be unanimous.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are there any more questions of the committee or staff involving this proposed restructuring change?
Would that have to be approved by the county staff, or would that be approved by the individuals of us that are on the commission?
Well, since Mr. Martin, everybody, all the local governments have signed or entered into the agreement with the commission, it would have to be a resolution by the governing body.
Okay, thank you.
With a change to the charter, is there a different, is it simple majority, or is there 2/3, or is there anything like that for the vote?
The vote is, Mr. Volson, the charter has to be unanimous. If you make a change in the bylaws, that has to be 2/3, but a vote to change the charter has to be agreed on by all local governments.
I think the question is, as for the commission vote today, does that require a simple majority?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
go
sorry.
forward to each locality.
I think to me, if the commission approves it, then just it's a majority. It's simple majority.
But then it has to go, okay, so let's go over this with a simple majority today, proposing, supporting the changes or voting on the changes. And then it goes to the local governments, of which all must unanimously support it in total.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
So just, Mr. Chair, let me just make sure that everyone is clear as to what we are proposing and what it is we're voting on. So the first thing that we would be voting on is the language on page 50. I'm having trouble reading the numbers, but I think it's 55, which is where at the bottom of the page where it says the following is draft charter language to reflect the recommended change. And this is changing the language in Article 2, Section 1 of the charter. Okay. The second provision that we would be voting on at the same time, unless you want to separate them, and that's the chair's determination, is to vote on the provision for an alternate designate, and that is in Article 2, Section 6, which is not amending an existing provision. It is a new provision that does not exist currently in the charter. And we're asking, the committee is recommending that the commission approve both of those. If the commission by a majority vote approves both of those, then it will be sent to each of the local governments with some explanation as to what they're voting on and what the action of the commission was, to ask them to approve the change as well. And if we get 100% of the member localities governing bodies approving this as an amendment to the charter, then the charter will then be amended. Any questions on that?
Oh, so then we need to vote on both of these today, recommended changes on 55 and the draft language for Article 2 on 57.
Chairman, I have a question. Or maybe this is more of a request of staff. If this passes, if you could do like one board report that covers it all, send it to each of the local governments with a redlined version of the whole charter marked up, so we all do the same thing.
Yes.
That takes the administrative burden off of me.
Yes. Now,
Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry.
Wayne?
I just wanted to mention that, as Mr. Osborne said, this would go into effect July 1st, 2021, or FY 2022. And the determination would have to be made if the local governments wanted to take someone off the board now. I mean, we've done an analysis, and 20% of our members come to one meeting a year. So there may be those who are willing to, go off the board. Or we could, we could pursue, as Mr. Osborne said, the idea of when you come up to be, your tenure ends in 2021 or 22, then you would the local government would just not reappoint you.
Through attrition.
Through attrition.
Through attrition. Okay. Uh,
Mr. Chair.
Is there, someone else has a question? Yes, Mr. Bullison.
Yeah, I was wondering if we might be able to table this motion until the next month so that we can have more time to review this. It looks like there's quite a bit and we have new members from our locality.
Okay. Are you making that a motion, Mr. Bullison?
I am, so moved.
Okay, is there a second on Mr. Bullison's motion?
I'll second. It's Robert Jeffrey. I'll second that.
Mr. Jeffrey seconds the motion.
Yeah, I will say that the timetable for this, this was not something that was urgent, but we were requested by Mayor Gross to bring this to the attention of or bring a report back at this meeting. So I don't think the committee has, particularly if there are questions that people want to look at more carefully. And if we want to come up with an actual recommendation or provision regarding the effectiveness and how it takes effect, I don't think on behalf of the committee that we would have any objection to tabling this for a month and getting further input and feedback.
And we have a motion, Mr. Bullison, and a second by Mr. Jeffries to table this for a month to further review it and understand it. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask those who are, if you would
wait a minute,
talk with your colleagues about.
Is there any discussion on the motion first, Wayne?
Oh, no.
Mr. Chairman, as a motion to table and a second is not subject to discussion. You proceed directly to the vote.
Okay.
Well, I do think it would be helpful if we were to get something in writing.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, it is not subject to discussion to go directly to the vote.
Mr. Secretary, would you call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Lanford?
Based upon Mr. Osborne's comments about his opinion with regard to waiting a month, I'll vote yes.
Ms. Vanisdahl?
Also, yes, agreed.
Mr. Clinton? Mr. Clinton? Mr. Martin?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Whitlow?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mr. Dean Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Radford?
Yes.
Mr. North?
Yes.
Mr. Osborne?
Yes.
Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
Mr. Bestpitch?
Yes.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Yes.
Dr. Downey?
Yes.
Mr. Jeffrey?
Yes.
Mr. Gessler?
Yes.
Mr. Volleson?
Yes.
Mr. Wallace?
Aye.
Ms. King?
Yes.
Mayor Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Irvin?
I'll vote aye and simply ask that a red line of the proposed changes of the charter be included in next month's packet that we can look at as an item to vote on.
Mr. Newbill?
Aye.
The motion passes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 7 on the agenda, the South.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I did want to ask if you, I know many of you are members of the governing body, but those even that aren't, that are citizen reps, if you could share that and talk with your colleagues about this and get their feedback before our next meeting in February, that'd be great. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to say that a little differently, which is we don't want this to be an exercise in futility. We spent some time trying to come up with what we think is the best solution, but know that there may be other thoughts. So if any representative of a local government feels that this is not going to work, we would like to know that so that we can try to take that into account. Maybe the committee can go back and revise its proposal if we know that one locality, for example, is not going to accept this, because again, it has to be unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add one thing, John Lanford here in Allegheny.
Yes,
I
John.
would just like to thank the committee for the work they've done and for taking into consideration the feedback that I think you recognize from some of the small rural localities, and making sure they had membership at the meeting and allowing for maybe an alternate method. So from the folks in your smaller rural localities, we appreciate the consideration that you gave us, and look forward to discussing it.
Yeah, this was appreciate the comment there, John. This was interesting exercise. I think most of what we noticed about this is it's hard to please everyone, and anytime you're looking at this, but one comment, and that is this, that our attendance with Zoom is up compared to when we didn't have Zoom. So I don't know what that tells us. Maybe going forward, we should consider doing both in this time, because I don't believe we're going to be off Zoom anytime before September, October, from what I'm gleaning from the data. Also on the alternates, I was just interested in if anyone, before we move on, just what did everyone think about the alternates besides your comment? That was to encourage attendance at all times.
Phil, this is Lori Smith.
Yes, Lori.
Just a question. Why, or Lee, what is the rationale behind having the alternates be optional?
You mean as opposed to requiring a locality to designate an alternate?
Correct.
I guess we just didn't want we thought that might be presumptuous, but that could certainly be a change, would be to require each locality to designate an alternate.
I was just curious. Thank you.
Yeah.
It was just flexibility. If somebody did, there may not be anyone they could put on there for many reasons, because many of these positions are part-time elected officials, and there may not be anyone in that particular board that's able to do it. And that was why it was kind of flexible. It was encouraged, but wasn't required.
Thank you, Phil.
Yes, thank you, Lori.
And it's important to understand that each alternate will get the same information, the same notices and materials for each meeting and every committee that the primary member has. So that was part of the reason.
Okay, there being no more comments.
I have a comment. My hand is raised. This is Pam.
Pam?
What came up for me was with the alternate having to travel from Clifton Forge over to Roanoke for the live meetings. How will they be reimbursed for their travel expenses? Would we be responsible to do that?
That's,
as far as I know, that would be up to each locality.
yeah, that's up to each local government.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, let's move along then to item 7, Southeast Crescent Regional Commission update. Jeremy Holmes, do you have a report for us?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. I'm going to try to share my screen here. There's a staff report on this, hopefully brief update in the agenda packet, but I figured we'll have a short presentation to summarize some of the key points. I believe about a year ago, Mr. Strickland mentioned some of the work that had been done on the Southeast Crescent Regional Commission. And so I thought it would be this good opportunity to sort of update folks on where we are on that kind of big project. As a summary of the background of what for ease of speaking, I'll call it the Crescent Commission, because I don't think I can say all those words over and over again, even for the next couple of minutes. But this commission was formed in the 2008 Farm Bill. This is an organization modeled very much after the successful Appalachian Regional Commission, Northern Border Regional Commission, and the Denali Commission. Many of us are very familiar with the Appalachian Regional Commission and what they do for the jurisdictions in our area. As you can see from the map, you can see where this Crescent Commission would cover. And in terms of our commission's impact, the Crescent Commission would cover many of the localities that aren't currently being served by the Appalachian Regional Commission. So pretty much we would be in one or the other in terms of access to resources, technical support, economic development, resources, and so forth. Where we stand on this is, although the Crescent Commission was created in 2008 in name, it did receive appropriations of $250,000 a year to staff and get the organization up and running. It requires the appointment of a federal co-chair to actually spend those dollars and run the commission. That has never happened since its creation. So it exists on paper. That money is out there to be accessed, but as of yet, no sitting president has appointed that federal co-chair to activate the Crescent Commission. In 2019, there began to be a real push, and this is where we initially kind of brought this to your attention, but there was a big push by a Crescent Commission coalition to try to get that federal co-chair position appointed and activate this. Again, looking at the success that many of the Appalachian Regional Commission jurisdictions had seen through those funds and programs, the need to activate something similar was identified. That coalition began a process of vigorous advocacy and outreach throughout the states represented by the Crescent Commission. That ended, that phase of the advocacy ended in March of 2020 with a presentation here in Virginia at Virginia State University. Many Virginia PDCs were present at that presentation, as was the VA PDC, to learn more about the goals and the next steps in the advocacy for the Crescent Commission. And then in a statement that we hear a lot these days, COVID-19 happened and all of the planned advocacy outreach and other programs were suspended as of March. For example, there was a major effort planned in North Carolina with, I believe, the Federal Reserve to try to bring more attention, specifically attempting to lobby Senate support on getting that federal co-chair position filled. All of those advocacy efforts ended and the project's largely been on hold. Where we are now is in November, with the change in administration, that coalition restarted its advocacy efforts through two primary ways. First, there was a solicitation from participating states for potential names for that federal co-chair position, just in terms of being able to gather some possibilities and present those to the incoming administration. And the coalition did reach out to President-elect Biden's transition team to lobby for the importance of finally getting this position filled and getting the Crescent Commission activated. That's where that stands. But now, as you can see, there is another session coming up, more of these advocacy sessions and lobbying sessions to get political support on board are beginning to take place. That is where we stand. So hopefully we will see some of these other programs and efforts pick back up where we left off back last April. We don't know exactly what form the Crescent Commission would take. All of the existing major regional commissions like the Appalachian and Northern Border and so forth, all are very responsive to their local conditions and all do things a little bit differently. So we would expect the same from the Crescent Commission should it come into play. But as I said, one of the big pushes right now is attempting to lobby Senate support. And as we know, there were some major changes in the Senate makeup with this last election. So we don't know exactly what will be happening on that level. But that's where we are. That's a very brief update, but we wanted to let you know kind of where things were happening. This will potentially have a big impact on our region should it come into play. So we wanted to keep you apprised of some of the activities that were going on. If you've got any questions, I'm happy to happy to try to answer them. We will be attending that resiliency conference on February 10th to continue to follow the progress of the development and the advocacy for the Creston Commission. But that is it for my report.
Thank you, Jeremy. Any questions for Jeremy? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item 8, fiscal year 21 work program progress report. Who's speaking for the staff, Wayne?
Mr. Chairman, we do this on every 6 months or so. We talk with you about the kinds of projects we're involved in and how we're moving forward on the various requests that we had from local governments. And we're going to have several staff members be talking about the projects that we're working on right now. So I think we're beginning with transportation. And Christina, or?
Hello, good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chairman and members of the Regional Commission. My name is Christina Finch, and I am happy to share with you some information today about our transportation program. So a large part of our transportation planning work here at the Regional Commission involves supporting the Roanoke Valley Transportation Planning Organization. The RVTPO is required to exist by federal code, and as such, there are some federally required activities as well as stakeholder requested activities that we accommodate each year. I wanted to mention about our congestion management process, which we updated and was completed and approved this past fall. One key takeaway is that the Roanoke Valley doesn't have much severe congestion, and the RVTPO wants to keep it that way. Strategies to keep congestion levels low will involve increasing the mix of land uses and the density of development, making alternatives to driving alone to work possible, convenient, appealing. So finding other ways to get even teleworking like many folks are doing now, multimodal transportation, making those options more convenient and appealing, certainly are strategies. And then lastly, improving the efficiency of roadway operation. So this is a process that will continue to be updated maybe around every 5 years or so as we monitor the situation of congestion in the region. The next bullet point there talks about the Surface Transportation Block Grant, STBG federal funding program. The RVTPO is directly responsible for determining how to spend over $5 million a year to improve transportation in the Roanoke Valley. We are in the process right now of updating that financial plan of investments, which will occur over the next 6 years. And currently there are over 30 projects on the draft plan that have either received funding in the past and are still active, or will be receiving funding in the future. The next bullet point there is the study on transportation and economic development. We are currently working to update a regional study on transportation project prioritization for economic development and growth. Since October, we have been meeting with economic development stakeholders to assess the greatest transportation needs related to economic growth. And we'll be working with our transportation stakeholders to identify the best projects to meet those transportation needs in the coming months. Some of you may remember that last year we updated the rural bike plan, which was 10 years old. We are now beginning the process of updating the urban bike plan to look at what issues do people who bike experience when traveling from place to place in the Roanoke Valley, and then how biking might help address transportation needs in the future. Further down the list there is the urban and rural long-range transportation plans, and those are huge efforts. Every plan and study that we do all help provide input into our regional long-range transportation plans. We are currently updating both the urban and rural long-range plans with a target completion of the fall 2022. We have been conducting the region's first ever transportation needs assessment, which will be helpful as we work with stakeholders to identify which needs are most important to address soon and which can wait until a future time. From there, we will consider how those transportation needs may be addressed and what investments should be pursued. I wanted to mention about the Botetourt County Community Mobility Design Project. This past fall, Botetourt County was selected by the National Center for Mobility Management as one of 4 communities in the country to develop and test ways to address the transportation barriers to healthcare that are experienced by rural seniors and people with disabilities. The commission is the lead agency on a multi-agency team that includes Botetourt County, the Eagle Rock Rurotans, and the Botetourt Resource Center. And then the last bullet point on the slide here is about SmartScale. I wanted to mention just briefly about SmartScale. You'll hear more about it next month. SmartScale is the state's main program for selecting transportation investments. It is an ongoing process which we continue to be involved in as the commission and the RBTPO are applicants, as well as providing support to localities in their pursuit of transportation funding. So that's a brief overview of some of the big things that are going on in transportation at this moment, and I'll pass it on to the next staff person.
Thanks, Christina. My name is Amanda McGee, and I do a lot of different things, but this slide in particular is about the Roanoke River Blueway effort. So this was it is an independently funded effort. It has its own kind of line item in our budget, and it's funded by Roanoke County, the cities of Roanoke and Salem, and the town of Benton. We work to promote and improve the existing Roanoke River Blueway, which for those unfamiliar with the term blueway, a blueway is, a water trail. It's using the river as a recreation facility. Current projects include, we are working to improve kiosk signage at all of our access points along the Blueway. And we're also working with the localities to improve access points at 13th Street and at Wayside Park. And we're doing both of these projects by providing letters of support and match funding for those projects. And then also doing helping with the FERC relicensing as a stakeholder for our community and representing our community at the Niagara Dam FERC relicensing, which is ongoing. And then going forward, we're thinking about how to prioritize future projects so that we actually have a strategic plan to figure out what needs to be prioritized. Tim, if you could go to the next slide. Other things that are relevant in the work that we do that's under more of the community development framework. So I previously have spoken to the board this fiscal year about the Roanoke Valley Local Food Plan, the Rural Bikeway Plan. Those were both approved in September. We also closed out last year's Arbor Day planning, which it's on here because usually it doesn't carry into the next fiscal year, but it is on here because we were able to repurpose some funds that were not spent by Roanoke County and Salem to support the tree plantings on the Jackson River Trail last year. So that's kind of a cool thing that happened as a result of COVID, or an opportunity that occurred there. Then in terms of ongoing projects, we have the Roanoke City Neighborhood Walk efforts. We're working to help improve walkability and create a framework to roll into Roanoke City's neighborhood planning around the city. So that's ongoing. And then Franklin County, we're working with them to do some mapping and potentially pilot a counter program down in Franklin County to support the existing trails and future trail development. Arbor Day, again, this year is serving the town of Benton and the city of Salem. We have the Valley to Valley trail planning. This is a big, you'll probably have seen this in the paper. This is a VDOT initiative. They're the lead on it, but we are kind of the contact facilitator to make sure that they are talking to the right stakeholders and right people in our region. And we're expecting a report from them in the next month, hopefully. Everything was kind of delayed because of COVID, which is not really a surprise. We have been working with Volpe on the next phase of the McAfee-Knob shuttle efforts. So they are producing a study that was commissioned by the National Park Service about the feasibility of a shuttle to McAfee-Knob, and we're hoping that we have been providing input on that study and helping shape that study, and then also we're hoping that we can use that for grant applications in the future to support that effort. As part of that, or kind of related to that, we have been active with the Triple Crown Visitor Use Management and the 311 Pedestrian Bridge projects, which are both technically the leads on those are National Park Service and VDOT, but they have pretty frequent meetings that we go to and provide input and help with different sub projects, including the shuttle. We have our Regional Greenway and Trail Counter program, which we have been doing for several years now, and we're working on our annual report for that right now. And then we are also working on the Craig County Tourism and Roadmap update. That is, I think that'll be the 3rd edition of that project. And that's a bunch of stuff, but there's more, and other people are going to talk about it.
Good afternoon. I'm Eddie Wells, Director of Community Development. I want to talk about some of the things we do. I guess working closely with DHCD on some of the CDBG projects in the area, and serving on the project management teams for Allegheny County's Wrightsville Neighborhood Project. There's City of Covington Downtown Revitalization. Covington also has a Jackson Street project that Brian Hill, their office, was on the project management team for. Brian's also on the Town of Vinton Housing Rehab Project. Some of the other technical assistance we've been doing this year more recently. I've been working with Mr. Clinton on Greenfield Historic Preservation. We just submitted an application to the National Trust a couple of weeks ago, looking at funding for preserving some of the buildings at Greenfield. Also taking a look at the, I guess, Botetourt's or Fincastle's Courthouse Square project, looking for opportunities for historic preservation and maybe new business around that relating to I guess the new courthouse construction. Go to the next slide, Tim. Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. This past year, I guess in June, we did the 5-year update. We're continuing to work with the SEDS committee this year on reviewing the SEDS committee bylaws, and also doing changes and updates to the SEDS committee membership. Again, similar to the commission's membership, getting everyone to come out, stay involved, making sure we have quorums, and keeping the project going is important. We've asked committee members to go back, talk to their other elected officials and I guess people in the business sector, see if there are going to be maybe new members or reduced memberships on the SEDS committee. Go to the next slide. Which is Brian's.
Hi, I'm Brian Hill, and we'll talk again this month a little bit about the housing study analysis. As most everyone that was at last month's meeting knows, that the board adopted the regional housing study, and just wanted to kind of give you a timeline of what we've got left, and a couple of other projects and some implementation items that are coming up on the horizon. So, of course, I just mentioned in December the study was completed, adopted. Now I'm working on the prettied up, professional, nice, graphically friendly looking version of the study, as well as Tim Pola-Thomas and I are developing a press release for the study, which keep your eyes out for. We'll release that first of next week, as well as on the website. Currently, we've got the black and white version, as I call it, of the study on the website now on the front page in a blog article. In February of this year, we got a few miscellaneous requirements because the funding this project would not have been possible without funding from Virginia Housing, formerly known as VHGA. So we've got a few miscellaneous requirements to satisfy that community impact grant, and then we'll tie that up, get the final study product to Virginia Housing, and then we'll do a drawdown for the remainder. In this work program, we also have a project request from Franklin County to obviously, once the study is complete, to provide a comp plan amendment. So that will be I'll start that once this all wrapped up, and really in the aftermath of the study, we'll also be doing some outreach to the localities in terms of making presentations to boards and councils. I know that I've had one or two requests already, so if you'd like us to come and chat with your boards, your planning commissions, that sort of thing, in terms of either adopting the housing study as part of the comprehensive plan or just a presentation to the board or council, feel free to reach out to me, and we'll make that happen. Next slide, please.
Hi. Hello, everyone, members of the board. My name is Gabriel Edegaray, and I'm a regional planner here with a focus on our water quality efforts, specifically in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. And so the Chesapeake Bay watershed, I should have put a graphic on here, but it's located in all of Allegheny County, some of Craig County outside of the Sinking Creek watershed, and most of Botetourt County outside of the Tinker Creek and Carbons Creek watershed. So this is an effort to implement the phase 3 of the watershed implementation plan for the state of Virginia, or Commonwealth of Virginia, excuse me. And it's been an ongoing effort with the DEQ since 2018. And so currently what we're doing for this effort, we hold stakeholder group meetings, which consists of different members from various organizations that we meet to discuss and build ideas, to discuss potential projects, and to work towards our regional water quality goals. We work closely with the soil and water conservation districts in the watershed, most notably the Mount Castles, who serve Craig County and Botetourt County. Two projects that are ongoing with them, one being the Eagle Rock Library Rain Garden Project. This was actually a product of one of our stakeholder group meetings from last year. The goal being to promote the Virginia Cost Assistance Program that is run by the Soil and Water Conservation Districts in Virginia. And this is a cost share program that funds residential BMP projects. And so promoting that program, as well as being an educational, environmental educational tool for the library. And then also there's the Upper James Riparian Buffer Program, which actually just began this year. It's an extension of the already established Middle James Buffer Program that is funded through the Virginia Environmental Endowment. The funds were awarded to the James River Association and the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. It's a program that provides cost-free buffer installations to landowners with property along the James River and its tributaries. And again, the Upper James watershed is considered to be all the area above the confluence of the Maury River and the James River at the town of Glasgow. And so this program, they work closely with the Soil and Water Conservation Districts since they already do work with landowners to implement agricultural programs. So we will work closely with them to help with that effort and provide assistance as needed. Septic system maintenance, education, and pump out reporting. So one of the things the DEQ has asked us to do is to improve the education of septic system maintenance. and pump out of reporting, well, reporting to the BMP or Best Management Practice Warehouse in general. So this is where all the best management practices that are installed in the Commonwealth are reported to the DEQ. And they use this data in terms of the Chesapeake Bay Phase 3 WIP to send it to the Chesapeake Bay Program Office, who develop models for nutrient trend reductions. And so pump outs we figured was a great place to start with this reporting effort, as they are, a routine maintenance procedure to ensure that septic systems are working properly, and aside from the environmental health benefits that they provide, will also provide benefits to your property. So we felt like these two go hand in hand, and it's an effort that the Soil and Water Conservation Districts already undertake. So we will continue that. Public outreach. Last year we produced some materials for events, including videos, as well as some social media campaign and blog posts that promote water quality in our region, as well as bring notice to the Phase 3 WIP and what Virginia is trying to do to improve its water quality, not only in the for the Chesapeake Bay, but for also our local streams and rivers. And then grant research and targeting. There are a lot of great opportunities for the Chesapeake Bay watershed to receive funding for water quality projects. Both state funded programs, federally funded programs. And so we've stayed up to date with, when those applications are solicited, attending workshops for training on how to properly apply for the grants. And then as well, prioritizing areas where, installation or project areas would be most competitive to receiving those grants. We also work with the Stormwater Advisory Council, and the Stormwater Advisory Council is made up of our MS4 localities, MS4 standing for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer Systems. And so these localities are regulated urban areas, and so they receive permits for their storm sewer systems. And so one of their requirements is to meet with other regional MS4s to discuss permit management, some water quality projects that are going on in the area, including stream restorations, as well as to collaborate on water quality of regional significance, as our waterways don't conform to our jurisdictional boundaries. So this group meets quarterly, and again, it's a MS4 requirement for them.
All right, good afternoon. I'm Matt Miller, the Director of Information Services, and my focus here is on mapping, GIS, demographics. And these are some of the projects that I'm working on this year. The Allegheny Highlands Bridge the Gap mapping is focusing on identifying neighborhoods that use a lot of government or public services like police or social services. The Allegheny Highlands Economic Impact of Arts and Cultural Organizations is a study that we're doing on 5 or 6 organizations using economic impact modeling software. We provide staff support to the Roanoke Valley Broadband Authority for helping assist in the running of their meetings, doing their meeting minutes and agendas. The more interesting part that I'm involved with is maintaining their 811 misutility mapping for the broadband network in the Roanoke Valley. We've also assisted Botetourt County with some broadband mapping related to the grant that they've received recently from VATI and to other initiatives that are taking place. Our staff provides support to the Western Virginia Regional Industrial Facility Authority in running their meetings. We do general technical assistance for localities and businesses, meeting small requests. We had 2 of those from Dabney Lancaster Community College and Total Action for Progress, where we did economic impact analysis for grants that they were funding in the region. Another more interesting project I did was the COVID data and demographic dashboard that we've been running for our region. And I think that data there is current for today. We've had 315 deaths within the region and 21,000 cases, which I think is about 6% of our population. So that's all I had. Next slide.
Thank you. This is Jeremy Holmes again, and as a brief summary of kind of where we're standing on the commuter assistance program. It's worth noting this program is funded by DRPT to encourage folks to carpool, use transit, bike walk, telework. Obviously, in COVID, encouraging people to get into vehicles with strangers is a non-starter. So many of the programs that we had planned to carry out this year have been suspended and replaced with other activities. Much of what we've done is public awareness. For example, we worked with DRPT on a Transit Appreciation Month. Usually they do a Tri-Transit event in September, encouraging transit use. We focused this year on supporting transit operations, transit drivers, and the need to support essential workers, the importance in transit and making that happen. Not being able to work with transit and carpooling, we did a lot more focus on our active transportation program. We do quite a bit supporting bicycling for transportation in the communities where that is feasible. We did that this year with the support of our annual Tweed Ride and Holiday Lights Tour. Usually the Holiday Lights Tour generates about 100 riders who go on a big group ride in the city of Roanoke, looking at holiday lights in various neighborhoods. For both of these tours, we went virtual. So rather than organizing big group rides, we found some additional software platforms and other ways of encouraging folks to still take these tours, learn our urban networks and transportation options by bicycle, but without doing so in big group rides. As a matter of fact, there's a platform that we're working with in that we plan on expanding our self-guided tours and virtual tours in partnership with a number of nonprofits, local organizations, and Virginia's Blue Ridge to encourage more people to get out and ride and explore more of the localities and even some rural areas in the commission area that we normally aren't able to promote. We're currently in the process of working on planning for our Earth Day and National Bike Month events. Last year, we led a significant virtual Earth Day celebration. It was the 50th anniversary, and all of the in-person events in April were shut down. So we took on leadership of an all-day virtual event with dozens and dozens of partners, and we have been requested to lead a similar effort this year. So we're working with Resilient Virginia and local Earth Day organizers in the region on carrying that out. And we are in the process of completing our commuter assistance program operating assistance grant for next year, which is an interesting proposition. Guessing as we are when vaccinations and so forth may lead to a little bit more of a normal transportation situation, but that is where we are now.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeremy, for those updates. Item 9 on our agenda is Commuter Assistance Program Assistance Grant Application. Can you give us a story on that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. You should have in your agenda packet a resolution of support for matching funds for the annual Commuter Assistance Program Operating Assistance Grant that we submit to the Department of Rail and Public Transportation. This is one of the documents they require as part of submitting that grant. You'll notice in the resolution, we are seeking a total program funding of $232,000. This resolution would authorize matching funds of $39,227. to support that grant. This does reflect a reduction in the amount of funding we have sought from DRPT to support the Ride Solutions program in previous years, in part because we are canceling a number of large promotional programs that we used to do, as well as looking at the impacts of what COVID-19 is likely to mean on the program within the first year of recovering from that. In addition, the resolution covers authorization to support a mobility programs grant. This would seek funding to subsidize van pools. The state has begun a program they call Van Pool VA that is focused on bringing van pooling, which is currently very popular in Richmond and Northern Virginia area, to Southwest Virginia. We believe this is an extraordinarily important service, particularly for our rural communities, as it bridges the gap between, say, transit in places where transit is not feasible and kind of traditional carpooling. The funding that we're seeking through DRPT will provide a subsidy to operate vans. We are applying for this grant. We are not sure what the COVID situation will be in terms of actually being able to start van pools. We do know that Commute with Enterprise, which is a private commuter program from Enterprise Rent-A-Car, they operate a van pool service. And so they are currently active in the region attempting to start some van pools up. So we have participated in those conversations and hoping to seek some funding to help support those and to help support rural commuters and employers. Happy to answer any questions about the resolution or the Ride Solutions program that we're seeking to renew funding for next year.
Okay, any questions for Jeremy? Thank you, Jeremy. There being none, we'll move on to item 10, other business. Wayne, do we have any other business to discuss?
Mr. Chairman, we have to vote on that resolution.
Okay. We'll have a motion to support the resolution that Jeremy mentions on page 59 of the packet.
Move the resolution.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, go ahead.
The motion was made by Stephanie Moon Reynolds. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Thank you very much. Wayne, did you get that?
That was Dr. Downey, right?
Dr. Downey seconded.
Okay, yes, I did, sir.
Okay, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Lamford.
Yes.
Ms. Vandersdal.
Yes.
Mr. Clinton.
Yes.
Mr. Billy Martin.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Whitlow.
Yes.
Ms. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
Mr. Dean Martin.
Yes.
Mr. Radford.
Yes.
Mr. North.
Yes.
Mr. Osborne.
Yes.
Mr. Tucker.
Yes.
Mr. Bestpitch. Mr. Bestpitch.
You're
Okay.
you're muted, Bill.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Yes. Okay. Miss
Space bar didn't work for a second there.
Miss Moon Reynolds.
Yes.
Dr. Downey.
Yes, and I'm very excited with this resolution.
Mr. Jeffrey.
Yes.
Mr. Guzzler.
Yes.
Mr. Volleson. Ms. Filosa. Okay. Ms. King.
Yes.
Mayor Marshall.
Yes, and I'm also excited about the resolution. Thank you.
Ms. Irvin. Mr. Irvin.
Aye.
Mr. Newbill.
Aye.
The resolution passes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Wayne. Moving on to item 11, comments from commission members and or the public. Do we have any comments from any of the commission members?
Mr. Chairman, if I could very briefly, just note that you'll see that today was a very good day for the Allegheny Highlands. The Board of Education approved the merger of the City of Covington Public Schools and Allegheny County Public Schools. That was approved locally in September, something that's been discussed here for better part of 50 years. And so it's a big day for the region in the Highlands. And so looking forward to proceeding with that effort.
Good deal. Thank you. Do we have any other comments, any other members or the public?
Mr. Chair, if you like, I can give an update on the AEP contract with all of our localities.
Okay, that's fine, Mr. Urban.
Many of you know there's a group of VML and VACO localities, schools, jails, sewer districts, water authorities. We've been working together for over 40 years to negotiate rates with APCO. It's been in the press a lot here lately with renewable targets set by the Virginia Clean Energy Act. The steering committee met and approved a draft agreement with APCO last week. And each locality should be getting a revised contract from APCO. You will be entitled as a net class to a $5.9 million SUR credit, as well as opening the pathway to all of the milestones that are in the Virginia Clean Energy Act.
Very good. Thank you very much. Does anyone else have anything?
Mr. Chairman, just to remind the work program committee, we'll have a short meeting right after the end of this session. So if you just stay on the line, we'll go ahead and get into it.
Okay, maybe we can take about a 1 minute break in between meetings there.
Yes.
Did we have any comments from the public? Did anyone send anything in? Okay. All right. Well, very good. Then with that said, going once, going twice, this meeting stands in adjournment. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Y'all have a safe rest of the month and be careful Sunday when the great storm hits.